Hey everyone, Inquisitor Vaughn here, and today I was cleaning up my library and I wanted to just showcase my Codex collection. Just seeing all these books made me feel a certain way, and I don't know exactly how it made me feel. I don't know if it made me feel bad, if it made me feel proud, I'm not sure. I'm still analyzing what I'm feeling, but I did want to share this collection. So, let's go through it. So, first, I want to start out with the Death Watch. This is the 8th edition Death Watch Codex. See, and in my opinion, the 8th edition codexes were some of the best codexes because they just had a bunch of stuff in them. Um, the pages were dark or they were just characteristic of the faction. The pages weren't as bright as next editions would become. One thing they had that I really liked, like look at the different ammunition. Like the current editions don't even show this artwork of the different ammunitions that the Death Watch have. This 8th edition represented a time of hope because at that time I thought Games Workshop was going to upscale the Firstborn Marines since they had just come out with Primaris. So I was like, oh, if they made Primaris, they're going to upscale the rest of the range to match Primaris, and they never did. So 8th edition really represented a time of hope and ultimately disappointment. But these codexes were beautiful. Look at the banners. These aren't even mentioned or shown in the new edition. These are beautiful art pieces. I think I keep this book partially because of just the art. Like, it's amazing, and it gives a breakdown of all the chapters, and I don't know, look at the maps. I think one of the things that I really liked about 8th edition codexes was the maps. You see where the different watch fortresses are. You see where the tomb worlds are, and like amble migrations. Like, these are awesome maps, and I love them. Right. So this is the 8th edition codex. It was a time of hope. And I remember telling people like, hey, we're going to get Primaris bikers, and no one believed me. And the reason why I said that is because we had Primaris bikers here. You see that leg plate right there? That's Primaris. Shoulder, backpack, Primaris. I told people, hey, we're going to get Primaris bikers. They're like, oh, no. And then it happened because I knew it was going to happen. It's in the artwork. This is when I started taking GW artwork seriously. Like, if they have an artwork of something, 9 times out of 10, they're going to make it a miniature. But anyway, so look at all the stuff that Death Watch had in 8th edition. They had dreadnoughts, they had tanks, they had all the other units that they could. But as you see, as the editions go on, they just lose a bunch of units. Rules, pretty cool. Right, so this is the 8th edition Death Watch Codex, my favorite Death Watch Codex. And then we get to 9th edition Codex. The cover is actually fire, like literally fire. Look at all that fire. But anyway, and it's not even its own codex, it's a supplement. It's a supplement because I think at 9th edition they started doing the supplements thing. But, at 8th edition they started doing supplements. But either way, the pages are brighter, the artwork is, brighter. It doesn't have the same feel. There's no new artwork, of course, but there's no map in this one. At least I don't think there is. I think because it's a supplement, they just depend on the Space Marine Codex, so they don't really put in a map or anything like that. Sorry that you see my shadow. I'm just like, the way I'm standing and the angle of everything. You see my shadow on the page, but the Death Watch start expanding into the Primaris range, so we get more Primaris stuff, and it's not too bad. The feel of the codex is not the same, and also like for the combat patrol, it's all Primaris Marines because this is when GW started pushing Primaris, and Primaris became popular. So everything became Primaris, and it's a nice codex, but this is 9th edition codex, right? For 10th edition, they didn't even get a codex. They got a mention in the Imperial Agents. And it's interesting, too, because I feel like this is like a clarion, like a warning. And it's a warning that because they were featured in this kind of codex where they are part of a faction, I think what GW is saying, especially since they didn't get a codex for themselves or by themselves for 10th edition, I think they're going to get rid of the Deathwatch veteran models, especially since Games Workshop has been talking about how they're hinting at new releases involving Deathwatch. I believe those are going to be Deathwatch Primaris Marines with like specific upgrades for Primaris, because I feel like if they push it so hard in this book, like, hey, Deathwatch are now part of this faction, I feel like in the next edition they're just gonna get rid of the miniatures, and I think this about a few of the miniatures featured in here, like they have Primaris shown in here, but the Primaris Marines are not featured in this book. Like they're not part of the Imperial Agents Codex. So they have Primaris Deathwatch, but they don't feature Primaris Deathwatch. I think this is just a warning that, hey, we're going to come out with new Deathwatch and new upgrades for the Deathwatch, but they're going to be Primaris. And so they've been pushing in this book that Deathwatch are a part of the Imperial Agents or the Deathwatch veterans, and now they're just a part of this codex, right? And also, this Xenophase blade is not the regular one that we have for the faction. This is a new style. This is more like a saber, and so this is another. I think this is another foreboding that they're going to put or give us more upgrades for Primaris that are Deathwatch specific and Primaris specific, but they're going to probably get rid of the veterans, which sucks because I literally have, I have like my Corvus Blackstar over here, and I have all my Deathwatch guys over there, and they're all firstborn, so it literally kind of sucks, but hey, I can't control it. But anyway, I guess you can say that's a theory, but I feel it very heavy. Also, they have the Grey Knights in this book, and they have the Grey Knight, I think, Terminators in this book only. But I think this artwork is a foreboding that they are going to create Primaris Grey Knights. There's other artwork as well that's just, it's obviously Primaris and not the regular. But if you can look at the artwork, it's just very simple, very minimal. The shoulder pads look completely different. The head looks completely different. Like even the weapons look different. Like usually a Grey Knight would have like a bolter on its forearm, right? But it doesn't in either arm. This is a new Primaris Grey Knight, and they're going to be releasing them. And I think that's the reason why they're pushing a lot of Grey Knight stuff out, especially the old stuff. They're putting like only the old stuff in the boxes because they're trying to get rid of the stock. But that's just me. That's just my theory. But as you can see, Deathwatch, they only are a part of the Imperial Agents Codex in 10th edition. In 11th edition, I think they're going to get their own stuff again. But I'm not sure if it's going to be including these guys. I think these guys are on their last leg. Unfortunately, they represent the next true armor. They represent Mark 9 armor, or Mark 8, Mark 9. But basically, Mark 10 was supposed to be Mark 9. And this is the errant pattern armor. They have like the neck armor to them and the different helmets, but I guess Games Workshop didn't want to go forward with it, and so they made the Primaris armor. Kind of sucks, but hey. Anyway, so 10th edition, 9th edition, 8th edition. Now it's a Necrons. Necrons 8th edition codex. Also, again, one of my favorite codexes, because just look at how it looks inside. This is the dark pages, the green outlines. Look at this artwork. It's just the war in heaven. I love these little pieces of art that like are here. There's random pieces of art that are just so freaking scary. I love it. And then they have the little quotes as well, which I think they kept doing in the future codexes, but it didn't have as much oomph as it did in these codexes. One of my favorite codexes, This is where I first read about the Ogdebec dynasty. See, the Ogdebec had their own section, which is awesome. You know, in the most recent codex, they're mentioned in like 2 sentences, which sucks. And then look at the map. Oh, look at the map. This is amazing. The Ogdebec territory here, Sarnek, Thocht. It's, you can see where things are, and I love that. And then they showed the organization of the legions, which is amazing. The new codexes don't even have this. It's like every codex after 8th edition was just like, here, take this book, and it's going to be an addition to 8th edition, because 8th edition is the foundation. Anyway, so look at this. Just, this is what I remember the hobby as, like just deep lore and just perfect. I actually fell in love with the Saotek dynasty just because of this cold silver and gold scheme. I wanted to know how to paint this. This is an amazing design. And then each of the dynasties, you know, like each of the larger dynasties, it's just amazing. And then Ogdebec get their own again. This is where I met the Ogdebec, and this is where I fell in love with them. And not to be surprised about it, but I literally have an entire army of Ogdebec because of that book, right? So clearly I'm an 8th edition kid, all right? So love this codex. Love this codex. It was amazing. Still one of my favorites. So this is 8th edition codex for the Necrons. 9th edition. And has a score pack on it. A map. I love this map. This is great because like you can compare this map to the other map and see where the Zarekan dynasty started popping up and how the dynasties have expanded over time. It's amazing. This was a good codex, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like the light pages. I don't like the simplistic organization of the Necrons, but knowing what I know from the previous codex, it's fine, you know? It does have really nice artwork, and like it's a good codex. I would say this is one of the better 9th edition codexes, right? So this is my 9th edition codex, and then we have the 10th edition codex, which is not bad as well, but I feel like it lacks depth. This artwork was beautiful. I'm not even gonna lie. I wish I could get this framed and like put on my door. But anyway, it's a good codex. It's the map is not as impressive, and it's only from a specific sector, but it's fine. Yeah, and this is the codex that we're on now until the next edition's codex. So yeah. Anyway, so 10th edition, 9th edition, 8th edition. Now we get to Space Marines. I have been playing Space Marines technically since before 8th edition, right? But I want to show you like how many codexes we had, because this is 8th edition codex, right? This was that time where they just introduced Primaris Marines. And so like this is it's an interesting codex, you know? It's full of information, it's full of lore, and all things considered, it was a pretty good codex. It had like a lot of lore, and that's what I like about a codex. Like it has that depth of lore, all the maps, organization, things of that nature. Like you know, like this was a good codex, and it, like I said, it gave hope. It gave me hope. It gave me the idea that Games Workshop is going to update or upscale the Space Marines for the Firstborn range, and they never did. Remember this? Remember this model? Remember this Chapter Master model? And now we have what we have now? Oh my goodness. Look at how awesome this is. Imagine if they just could have like upscaled this. I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway. And then the rules and things of that nature. It was a good codex. I really liked this codex. It gave me hope. This was an interesting time. This is partially 8th edition is why the Zahira sector, which is my narrative system, is based on the narrative cutoff point from 8th edition, because it was such an interesting time. Like the community was split in half between people who were devastated that their favorite miniatures were now obsolete, basically, and people who were elated that there was a new version of Space Marines. It was a really interesting time. A lot of conflict, a lot of it was bad. It was interesting for some, bad for most, because people like me who had full armies of firstborn Marines were just being teased every day, like, oh, you're fucking squat Marines, it was a really bad edition for people who wanted to keep their firstborn Marines. And they were in here, they're in the book, but it was the social impact of Primaris Marines that made it a bad thing. All right, so this is 8th edition. I think we had an 8.5. Yeah, we had an 8.5. Yes. So Games Workshop did this weird thing where they created new Primaris midway through the edition, and so they made another version. It was like 8.5. So it was 8th edition 8.5, or is it the other way around? I'm pretty sure this is 8th edition, and this is 8.5. So this is 8.5, and it's literally just like almost the same thing with a few more Primaris Marine units added into it. And people had to buy this to play to play their faction. And the rules, for the most part, were completely different, or at least partially different, like updated rules. But it was pretty much the same book with different rules and a few more units added onto it. It's crazy just to think that we had to buy 2 codexes in one edition. Right, so this is 8.5. This is actually one of the supplements that I bought for 8.5 because they started making individual chapter supplements. So this is the Imperial Fist one because I'm an Imperial Fist fan. It's cool. I keep it because it has the lore, and I love the lore. But I never played Imperial Fist's Primaris Marines. I just have them. I just have this book, but I don't know. It's nice to have, and they made one for each of the first founding chapters, excluding those that were the main guys, like Blood Angels. Like they had their own specific codex. But yeah. All right. Then we have 9th edition codex for the Space Marine. Do you see how many books is this for one faction? This was a good codex as well. I didn't like it as much aesthetically. There was lore. I actually liked this codex and this 9th edition, better than I liked 10th edition. And I think it's easier to understand, and it's closer to 8th edition. Of course it is, because it's the one right after it. But still, it was easier to play. I played more games in 9th edition than I did in 10th edition. Right? So this is the 9th edition codex, and now we have the 10th edition codex, which is the same, artwork from 8.5. You see that? This is the same art. I don't know why they did that, but anyway. So I've used this the least because I don't know, everything's Primaris now. I'm not a big fan of Primaris Marines. It's one of the reasons why I stopped playing Space Marines in the community now, because my Space Marines that I have are like my Void Lions, my successor chapter, my homebrew chapter. They're all firstborn. And their lore, even though I created their lore prevents them from being like a large Primaris organization. And plus, I just don't like the Primaris Marine models. There's something I just don't like about them. All right, so I bought this with the hopes that I would be able to somehow finagle and use my firstborn Marines, but I don't know, something about the rules didn't really attract me to it, and so I pretty much committed to my Necron armies, and I actually started building a Mechanicus army for 10th edition. I just stopped playing Space Marines, unless it's like the Death Watch, which are technically Imperial agents now, but I don't know, I just stopped playing Space Marines. I don't like Primaris Marines. Primaris are the new wave, and so I was kind of discouraged away. Like, the Void Lions exist in lore, and you might see them in my personal wargaming on the Zahira sector, because I have some firstborn miniatures. But they're, I don't really play them on the tabletop like that in a social setting. So yeah, so 10th, 9th, 8.5, 8.5, 8. And here we have the rulebooks. So this was the rulebook for 8th edition. This is, I don't know, I'm talking about 8th edition as if it's like the best thing ever, but it's the edition that I entered the game in. Like I started wargaming officially speaking, like right before 8th edition started. So these were my first official codexes, and so just to see, just to have this book and just to see the artwork that really enticed me toward the game and the system and all this lore and pictures of firstborn miniatures, by the way, like it was, these are the old miniatures from the range. Like I don't know, there's something about seeing it, it's very nostalgic. Yeah, so this is the 8th edition rulebook, and I'm not sure, was this the 9th edition rulebook? I think this was the 9th edition rulebook. Because I'm not sure, because I also have another rulebook, and it's like a Leviathan, and I'm pretty sure that meant it was 10th edition, but I'm not sure. But anyway, as you can see, everything's a little bit lighter in aesthetic. There's more white space on the pages, which means there's less lore, which kind of sucks, but you know, it shows the updated models. It shows like the Chaos Space Marines and Abaddon and all that stuff, and it was good. It was good, but it's not as good as the 8th edition rulebook. So up here, I have a few 8th edition codexes that I bought because I was interested in these factions. During this time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I was like exploring every faction. I was like a kid in the candy store. So I had some Astra Militarum, and I had the Codex. This is where I was inspired to make the Zalupian Predators Astra Militarum. And they were showing you how to kit bash certain things, and they had the lore for the different tanks, and I don't even know how the Imperial Guard Codex looks now, but I'm pretty sure it does not have as much information as this one does. So, yeah, I have this one, and then I have the Knights as well. I was interested in Knights. I actually had one Knight, Sir Samuel. I ended up giving him to Lord Strife because he's making a Knight House. But just look at the artwork and the profiles of the different Knight houses, and like I said, I don't know how the 10th edition Knight Codex looks, but I know that this was awesome. These books looked awesome. The information that they had was awesome, and 8th edition was just really cool. I'm gonna harp on that, okay? So, and then we have some of these. Now, these are technically 7th edition. I believe 7th edition, 5th to 7th edition. But these are really just collector books. I wanted them because of the nostalgia of the firstborn miniatures. And so there's a lot of black and white art here, and I really like it. It's very traditional. So I have the Dark Angels Codex. I have the Chaos Space Marines Codex. A lot of black and white art in here as well. Just love that traditional Adrian Smith type, artwork. Very nostalgic. This is also the Chaos range that I'm used to, that I started the hobby in when they were super small and they were about the size of regular firstborn Marines. You see those guys? Huron Blackheart, the Red Corsairs. Those were the size of Chaos Space Marines before, and they were so cool. I miss them so much because I don't know, like it. Nostalgia, nostalgia. These are the old demons, and this was like the Vostroyan Firstborn. This was like the Chaos Space Marines. I think these are the Purge or whatever they're called. But yeah, I miss these miniatures so much. They were great. I never had these, but these look awesome. I'm just going on a nostalgia fit right now. But here's the Blood Angels version. This is also really good. Love that black and white art. And then we see in the back, we see like, look at that. Look at that. I was actually talking to one of my friends at a 4th of July gathering, and we were talking about how beautiful these kits were for the Death Company and how many options you got in this box set. Like, you got 5 models, but you got the upgrades for at least 20, and it was great. Uh, the old Astaroth model, Lamarties. Yeah, I don't know what they did with the new Lamarties. I don't know. The old Scouts. Nostalgia, nostalgia, nostalgia. Look at these beautiful banners. Oh my gosh. I love these banners. Just the personal heraldry of so many people. Great time. Look at the Sanguinor. Oh my, look at the Sanguinor. Look at the Sanguinary Guard. These, I don't know, look, these in comparison to the ones that they released for the new Blood Angels, these are gorgeous. What is Games Workshop doing? They're taking away the beauty from these factions. Oh my gosh. The old Dante model, classic. But yeah, so I had that. And these are just, like I said, I wanted to collect them for the nostalgia of it all. And then I have the indexes. These are from 7th edition. And I bought these because, remember, I started right before 8th edition drops. So these were indexes, and they were the best thing that Games Workshop ever created because they had pretty much every faction in one book, or 2 books, depending. Because this is Xenos 2, right? Yeah, there was 1 and 2. And they had, like, the Tau, they had the Orcs, they had the Tyranids, they had the Gene Stealer cults, they had, like, so you only really, to help you transition into playing the game, you only really needed the indexes. And it was great. I still refer to these sometimes because Games Workshop should have more like this, where in like 7th edition, they just created indexes where it had all of the armies or half the armies inside one book. So all you had to do was flip a few pages and you'd find it. And if you wanted to know more about your enemy's army, you would collect these too, so that you could have them and look at the rules. It was great. And then I have, of course, the Imperium 2, because I was Imperial. Oh, Death Strike. Do you know there was a rule? It's an old rule, and it was a community thing. But if you were playing Imperial Guard and you had a Death Strike, you could, and there was someone else playing Imperial Guard, and they were in the same store or within a few miles. Actually, you could actually call. You could actually call the nearest store and ask if there was anyone playing Imperial Guard players. And if there was, you could say that you're sending a Death Strike. And you can send this bomb all the way over to that game and have it land and affect that game. Because the range of it was ridiculous. Like 200 inches. I don't know if that's true, but when I entered the community, people used to tell me that you could call in a Death Strike from another store. Ah, great! But yeah, this is the Imperial Index, and it pretty much had like everything. It had the Astra Militarum, it had the Scutari, it had the Sororitas, the Inquisition. It even had fortifications, which is something that Games Workshop doesn't put too much emphasis on anymore, but they had rules for terrain, which was awesome. This is when you actually wanted to have like terrain on your table because it meant something. Sisters of Silence. I'm trying to get to that page without the book closing. But yeah, like the Imperial Bastion, which had wounds and you could destroy them and you could actually fight from them. The Imperial Defense Line, the bunker, like the Aegis Defense Line. Look at this. I think Games Workshop returned this and like they made it a last chance to buy kind of situation. But look at that fortification. You could actually use it on the tabletop. You could actually destroy it. Like your enemy could actually target it. It was great. It It was amazing. It was great times in 8th edition. And then look at that. Amazing terrain right there. The macro cannon Aquila strong point. Look at that. So much passion in these sculpts. You know, so much detail, so much immersion in the setting. Amazing. But yeah, so, and then Kill Team. Now, funny story about this, right? I had bought the previous version of Kill Team, which, what was it called? It was called Shadow War. I had bought Shadow War like a week before they dropped the new Kill Team. So I had gone to my local Games Workshop and I had bought Shadow War and I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to learn how to do a skirmish game, blah, 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 blah. And then they dropped Shadow War the next week and released Kill Team. So this is Kill Team 8th edition. And to be honest, even though I was quite upset about, you know, just buying that book and then having it replaced, 8th edition Kill Team is the best Kill Team. It was super simple, super easy to understand, and I played a few games with it and I enjoyed it. There were no tokens, there was nothing that you needed to use that was like, oh, we need these cardboard cutouts. It was just super simple. But it seems like Games Workshop keeps making things complicated and more complicated in order to get us to buy more stuff. I'm getting older now. Like, I don't have the mental capacity to keep learning new rules over and over again. I think that's also why I start talking about 8th edition with such nostalgia, because it was simple and easy for me to understand. And every edition since then has been adding more and more rules that kind of like, they benefit the competitive people in the community, but I am not competitive. I just want to play a game. I want it to be simple and smooth. And every edition, they just keep increasing the complexity of their rules. Even with Horus Heresy. Horus Heresy was complex. Actually, 30K was actually a game that I really liked the complexity of because I think it matched the setting of the Horus Heresy. But with 40K, I wanted it to be simple. I wanted it to be easy to remember, and 8th edition represented that for me. For all of these factions, for Death Watch, Necrons, Space Marines, and Kill Team, it was just easy. And ever since then, it's just been more complicated. So, I hope you enjoyed this. This is a random video, but I wanted to share this with you because I have so many codexes, and so many of them are useless now. Look at all this books. Look at all these books. Look at all this information. Look at all this lore that's just been moved on from, that I've spent money on. Luckily, these weren't as expensive as the codexes are now, but like, look at all this stuff. All these books, and half of them, the majority of them, are just useless now. And I think this is describing something like a hobby fatigue of sorts, right? It's like I'm kind of tired of investing in the hobby. I love the game, I love the miniatures, I love the setting, but I don't love the amount of money that I have to spend on this stuff. It's becoming a lot, you know. As an adult with responsibilities, it's just like you start to wonder, like, is this worth it anymore? If they keep changing codexes every year, if they keep making new rules and releasing new miniatures and making old combination of miniatures and like old figures that you have obsolete, like, what's the point? It's like a hamster wheel. And if not for my hobby friends who keep me grounded and we make up rules and we just have a good time, I probably wouldn't be in the hobby, you know? So I don't know, like, things are changing, and change is good for certain things, but you know, I think the simpler a war game is, the better. And 8th edition represented that for me. Yeah, I just wanted to share all this stuff that I have. Behold my stuff, you know? But let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, do you relate to anything that I've said in the comments? Like, what was your favorite edition codexes? Let me know. Without anything else to say, Inquisitor Vaughn out. Remember, the Emperor protects, and the future is successor.